Today we have our first lesson for multi-step equations. So for the last week and a half, you guys have been working on one-step equations and transitioning into two-step equations. And without even really probably noticing, you guys did multi-step equations when you did some of the more difficult square root ones. So today we're going to start with multi-step equations with variables on both sides. So for your topic, you're going to just write multi-step equations up here. So again, your topic, multi-step equations. You guys have some steps that are provided for you. First thing we're always going to do is distribute. If we see parentheses and there's a number on the outside, we've got to take care of that. Combine like terms, solve the rest of this based on those skills from one-step and two-step equations, and then we can always plug in what we get to check our work. All right, so I'm going to just add in that topic so we are all on the same page moving forward. Multi-step equations. And then you guys can add today's date in the class as you wish. So multi-step equations is my topic for today. So I'm going to jump right in with number 1 on my whiteboard, and you guys are going to follow along with your guided note sheet. So number 1 is 2x minus 8x plus 1 equals 49. So what makes this a two-step equation is you now have an x in two different places. We're used to there just being one variable, and we always said that was u, and that coefficient in front of it was your date. And then the other numbers that didn't have a variable, like were your third wheel, are those people tagging along. So in this case, it's like there's two of you. So first step in our note says distribute. I don't see any parentheses, therefore there's no number on the outside that I need to distribute through, so check step 1 is done. Step 2 in your note says to combine like terms. So that means any constants on the same side of the equation can go together, and any variable terms can go together. So if I'm looking on the left-hand side of this equation, I've got 2x and negative 8x. Those are both variable terms because they both have the same variable of x. So they are like terms. They have something alike. 2x minus 8x is going to give me negative 6x. Bring down that plus 1 because there is no other constant on that side of the equation that the 1 is going to get combined with, and then just equals 49. So if you distribute and combine like terms correctly, ideally you're ending up with a two-step equation, and that should look really familiar to what we worked on last week. So in this case, your x, negative 6 is your date, and plus 1 is your third wheel, and that side with the 49 is home. So you want to subtract 1 first because that's the opposite of plus 1. Bring down you and your date, and that's going to equal 48. 49 minus 1 is 48. So we're multiplying by negative 6, so we need to divide both sides by that negative 6 because dividing is the opposite or the inverse. These will cancel out. X equals negative 8. Positive 48 divided by a negative 6, different signs, leaves me with a negative answer. So everything from that negative 6x plus 1 equals 49 should look identical to last week. The only new thing I added in today is that before you could do that, you had to combine like terms. So there was one new step at the very beginning, so you could recognize it as something from last week. All right, so that's number 1. Pause when you need to, work ahead if you think you've understand it. That was only the first one, so you might want to watch a couple more step by step with me before you start branching off on your own. So going across to number 2, I've got negative 19 equals negative 5 minus 3a minus 11. So I only have one variable, which is great, but I have multiple third wheels hanging out on this side of the equation. And you can consider that negative 19 to be like your home base. So distribute is the first step. I still don't see any parentheses or therefore no number in front of it to multiply through, so we're good. Step 2, combine like terms. All right, I have a constant of negative 5 and a constant of negative 11. So negative 5 minus 11, if I'm at negative 5 on the number line and I take 11 more away, I'm going to the left, I'm going to be at negative 16. So negative 19 equals, I'm going to put negative 3a first, my variable term, and then minus 16. So again, if we distribute and combine like terms right, this should look very similar to those two-step equations. So your A, -3 is your date, and that -16 or -16 is your third wheel. -19 is home. Opposite of -16 is to add 16. That's going to leave me with -3. -19, and if you add 16, it's just going to get you up to -3, not into the positives yet. And then equals -3a. That -16 is canceled out when you added 16 on each side. You're multiplying by -3, so the inverse of multiplying is to divide. -3 divided by -3, when you divide anything by itself, you're just left with 1. I'm going to make a neater A there. So -3 divided by -3, those negatives cancel out if you want to show how those cancel, and you're left with 1. So for number 2, A equals 1. And throughout this next week and a half, we're just going to keep adding a few steps to this. So this is a skill that you're going to continue to grow. So if you're still struggling with those two-step equations while you're working and this video isn't giving you enough explanation, raise your hand, come get me if I'm not working with another student at the time, and have me coach you through a few of them until you feel confident to practice that skill on your own. If it's not making sense, it's not going to do you any good to keep listening if you don't know how to ask questions or ask for help. So number 3, we've got 19 equals 10 minus 5w plus 9w minus 7. So they're making it a little trickier because we've got multiple variable terms on this side and multiple constants. So I'm going to bring my 19 down because there's nothing else on that side to deal with. Well, I know that 10 and -7 can go together. So 10 minus 7 is 3. All right, so I did my boxed in constant terms. So then I'm going to use circles for my variable terms. -5w plus 9w gives me 4w. Switch it around. 9w minus 5w, 4w. Makes the math a little easier that way to think about it in your head. Two-step equation. Your w, your date is 4. 3 is your third wheel. It's a positive 3, so we subtract 3, so it will cancel, making sure they're getting home by curfew. 19 minus 3 is 16, equals 4w. That's multiplication, so the inverse is to divide, dropping off your date. 16 divided by 4 is 4. 4w divided by 4 just leaves us with w. So again, this is my two-step equation. Before I could do that, I had to combine like terms. All right, one more with combining like terms as our first step, and then I'm going to introduce some distributive property. Number 4, 2k minus 6 minus 7 plus 3k equals -48. Notice they're getting a little bit longer. They're taking up the entire length of this whiteboard that I'm working on. So no parentheses, so I don't see any distributive to worry about. So I'm jumping into combining like terms. I've got 2k and positive 3k. 2k plus 3k gives me 5k. -6 and -7 are my constants. They don't have a variable with them. And that gives me negative or minus 13. And then that's still equal to -48. I just shifted it over a little bit there to make it a little more centered on my board. But that's still my brick wall. In a minute, whatever I do to one side, I'm going to have to do to the other side. All right, your K, 5 is your date, minus 13 is your third wheel, -48 is home. So opposite of minus is to add. 5 times K equals -48 plus 13. -48 plus 13. More negatives than positives. Use a calculator to check your work. You should get -35. So divide both sides by 5. -35 divided by a +5 is going to leave you with a negative, different signs, negative answer, 7. K equals -7. Number 5 has parentheses, so instantly my head is going towards that distributive property, which luckily, if you look in your notes, that's the first thing you should always be checking for, is to distribute if needed for that. So number 5, I've got 7 parentheses, x minus 6, end of parentheses, equals negative 14. All right, I see parentheses, and I see a number in front of those parentheses. That means I get to distribute finally. So 7 times x is 7x. 7 times negative 6, or minus 6, however you want to think about it, minus or negative 42. Distributive property is done. I'm going to bring down my equal sign and that negative 14. In this case, now that I'm done distributing, I don't have any like terms to combine. That will not always be the case. But for now, since I distributed, step 1, check. I'm trying to combine like terms, but there aren't any to combine. I don't see any other variable terms or constants on this side. So that means I can just go ahead and solve my 2-step equation. Your x, 7 is your date, negative 42 is your third wheel. So that means add 42, ditch that third wheel. So 7 and x are down here, equals negative 14 plus 42. Switch it around, 42 minus 14. It's going to leave you with a positive 28. You're multiplying by 7. The opposite of multiplying is to divide. 28 divided by 7 is going to leave us with 4. Nice, pretty answer so far. So once we distribute, we're left with a 2-step equation. Sometimes we're going to have to combine like terms before we get to this point. First step was to add 42 on each side. My second step is to divide by 7. And then I have my answer, and we're good to go. All right, going across to number 6. 16 equals negative 2, parentheses, k plus 9. All right, so distributive is the first thing that I should do. So negative 2 is going to be multiplied through to both things inside the parentheses. Negative 2 times k is negative 2k. Negative 2 times positive 9 is going to now be negative or minus 18. Draw your brick wall if you need to. That was not straight, but you guys get the idea. Your k, negative 2 is your date, negative 18 is your third wheel. So you're going to add 18 on each side. 16 plus 18 is going to give us 34. 6 plus 8 is 14. Carry your 1. 1, 2, 3, you got 34. You're multiplying by negative 2, so the inverse is to divide. Negative 2k divided by negative 2 leaves us with k. 34 divided by negative 2. So they're different signs, so I know my answer is going to be negative, and that's going to give me 17. K equals negative 17. Number 7. Got negative 52 equals 4 times 3n minus 1. All right, another distributive property to start with. 4 is going to be distributed through. So negative 52 equals, brick wall, just so it's there. 4 times 3n is 12n. 4 times negative 1 is negative 4. Third wheel is that negative 4, so I'm going to add 4 on each side. Negative 52 plus 4 is negative 48. If those are math problems you're struggling with, you need to make sure that you're using a handheld calculator that's going to be familiar to you on the next quiz. That will be coming up before the winter break. Your date is 12, so you need to divide by 12 on each side. Negative 48 divided by positive 12, different signs, so we're going to have a negative answer. So negative 4 equals 12n divided by 12 just leaves me with n. N equals negative 4. All right, so 1 through 7 should be done. I don't have quite enough time left on this video to get number 8 done with you guys, especially because that's a fraction and I want to make sure I don't rush through that with you guys. I'm going to make a second video for you guys to pick up on number 8.